What is up, YouTube fitness family? We got a special video for you. I am going to be reviewing the legendary Ramon Dino, the second place Olympia. Also just took second place in the Arnold Classic Ohio, and as well as the Arnold Classic UK to Wesley Vissers. So, or he didn't come to the UK one, I don't think. He just did the Ohio. So he came in second, but literally, I was talking about this with Phil, of all the bodybuilders, if I could like trade physiques with, just to like walk around with, it would 100% be Ramon. Like, he's probably one of the most aesthetic dudes. And when I was at the Olympia last year, just seeing him standing in the line waiting for comparisons, you're just like, dude, that dude should win. But then when he stands and poses next to Chris obviously is a posing master and also just has a few proportions on him, but you know, just standing and aesthetically and, you know, watching him work out, Ramon, I think takes the cake for me in terms of just overall aesthetic flow. So I want to see if the reason he looks so amazing is because of his training, genetics, a mixture of the both. So without further ado, I'm going to watch him work out here with Horse MD, Marcelo De Angelis. So he is also a Brazilian bodybuilder, open guy. Looks like you're doing some chest about 6 weeks out from the Arnold Classic. So without further ado, let's see this guy's form. He is an absolute savage. Got a neck tattoo, so he's way cooler than I fucking am for sure. No idea what they're saying, so I'm just have to go off what they do. So it looks like they're starting off with some incline dumbbell press. Not a bad exercise to start with. Personally, for me, I love to start with a fly movement because what that does for me is two things. One is it really opens up the chest, opens up my fibers, getting me really warmed up and primed for a pressing movement. And also secondarily, it pre-exhausts, meaning if I can do a fly movement, let's say a machine fly, cable fly, I'm opening up that tissue, but I'm also fatiguing it slightly so that when I go into a more compound movement like a dumbbell press, Smith machine press, barbell press, I don't have as much of that, let's say, top end strength. So I don't need to use as much weight to drive as much stimulus as if I'd started with that pressing movement. So let's see what the form looks like here. This Horse MD makes these dumbbells just look ridiculously small. So as you can see, probably just getting some warm-up sets. And let's see some of the working sets. It looks like we're getting up into the over 100 pounds, I would assume. So what I really like about this form right off the bat is he controls that eccentric load. So when he gets to the top, instead of just dunking it in, he controls the eccentric. One thing I would improve on is range of motion. I would arch the back more, retract the scap, open up the chest, especially through the pec minor, drive up and through and all the way into the middle. So as we know, dumbbell presses don't necessarily have a ton of chest contraction at the top of the rep because of the fact that you're stacking the joints, so wrist, elbow, shoulder. So as you get to the top, we're gonna be losing a good amount of contraction because you don't have to push through your chest anymore, just can basically use your joints and leverage to hold the weight at the top of the rep. Now, as he descends, this is very important. He probably controlled the negative a little bit more, and the stretch could probably be 4 to 6 inches deeper. And that's just gonna give you much more of obviously with full range of motion, you're gonna get more motor recruitment through the entirety of the chest and inevitably more hypertrophy. There's really no arguing that. There's science behind it. So he could use maybe the same weight with either fewer reps, more time under tension, more range of motion, or go even lighter if you need to feel like you're not really comfortable in that lengthened position yet. And that's what I did years ago. Instead of just like saying, okay, I'm gonna do the same exact weight and maximize range of motion, what I did was I reduced the weight for a period of time. And then as I got stronger in that lengthened position, now it's very safe for me to go top end weight, even with trying to get that full stretch at the bottom of the rep, really opening up the pecs. So I think it would definitely be helpful for his training and also to continue to grow his chest, which I know his chest sometimes gets a little bit dwarfed by his arms and shoulders, which are absolutely insane, and forearms. So that could be really helpful for him specifically. Also, just worth noting, like, this guy's like, whatever it is, 6 weeks out from a bodybuilding show. probably not going to be pushing, and I certainly wouldn't be to like maximum failure. So I'm probably not going to judge him as much today on how close he's going to true failure, because then you're in an off season, you got plenty more like joint lubrication, body fat, energy, glycogen, food, so you can push things probably closer to obviously failure. Also, you're farther out from a show, you're you're not as dry. Some of these agents we're using as bodybuilders to get that like dry hardened look, which will not be named in this video, that will inevitably cause your fibers and your muscle to not hold as much water, and so you're at a higher risk of injury. So like I said, I'm not going to judge him based on how close he's going to failure, more on like the form itself. So it looks like we're going to like a 10 to 12 rep range. I think obviously that's really good for pressing. I try not to go any lower than 6, especially with my goals being bodybuilding as compared to, let's say, powerlifting. Sure, if you're a powerlifter, by all means, do sets of 3, 4, 5, even down to 1 or 2 reps, because that's what's priming the nervous system to be able to lift those heavier loads. Whereas with hypertrophy training, we're really trying to obviously maximize stimulus to fatigue ratio and give as much hypertrophy as possible, and volumize the muscle as opposed to like make the muscle we have as strong as it can be. I actually like Marcelo's form on this horse a little bit better. He kind of tucks the elbows. I do think he could arch the back a little bit more, open up the chest. He gets almost like a little soft pause in the stretch before he drives out. What that's doing is it's disabling from him using a lot of momentum and kind of that boomerang effect you have with your muscles. So if you dig into a rep and then bounce out, your muscles have elasticity. So what happens is you get a little bit of natural recoil from the bottom of a rep, whether it be a squat, a press. When you get to the bottom and then almost drive out of it really fast, you don't like decelerate and recelerate, you just kind of bounce out of it. You're going to inevitably be able to use that recoil effect, which isn't very effective for hypertrophy, but is very effective from getting the weight from A to B. So Marcelo does a really great job of decelerating the weight, almost a soft pause, not resting on his chest. Could have, again, 2 or 3 more inches of range of motion, but these are actually pretty terrific form. I mean, just from the shot itself, like you can see how massive Ramon's arms are. Like in this position, it's fucking nuts. And his forearms are just insane. I have crazy ass forearms, dude, but I feel like my forearms are kind of shitty as compared to Ramon's. I mean, I feel like 99.7% of all humans' forearms are pretty shitty compared to Ramon's. But that being said, you can see that he could be getting so much more stretch, even if he'll pause right here at the bottom of his rep. Easily 2 to 3, maybe even 3.5 inches of range of motion, kind of bringing him out towards the side, really opening up the chest. Sure, you're not going to be able to maximally load as much as he is right here. This is probably, I'm assuming, 120, 140 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark, which is really impressive. But at the end of the day, he can probably push a lot of this with his front delts and not use his chest quite as much as he'd probably like to be using. Yeah, Marcelo really knows how to train. He's obviously seemingly training Ramon through this video. I think that obviously the pressing movement here is very good. It's a cool machine because it converges and it also gives you tension all the way through the course of the rep. Same thing, could utilize a little bit more stretch at the back of the rep. It seems that there's a lot of focus for them. I saw him, Marcelo cueing Ramon on this as well at the top of the rep, focusing on that peak contraction. While important, we've just kind of found that focusing on the peak contraction is not quite as effective as especially like pausing on the stretch. So I'd have him, if he's going to create more time under tension, I'd have him rather use that in the eccentric portion and also in that stretch position, getting that pause and really opening up the chest as we go. And then what we really don't talk about a lot is,
tired of generic fitness plans that never get you results? Say goodbye to the guesswork with my one-on-one coaching. It offers personalized strategies for maximum results and sustainability. Ready to elevate your physique? Fill out an application today. Link in the description.
How long can we do this safely, right? So for me, if I can really train in those lengthened positions, it's going to give me more longevity, because I feel like if I'm training them long, then I don't feel like I need to do as much mobility work outside of the gym, because obviously with that, like if I'm training here short, heavy, yeah, of course, when I get to this length of position, everything's gonna kind of be pulled forward and be tight. Your front delts are gonna hurt. Obviously you can get pain in biceps, insertion, elbows. Whereas if you train really, really lengthened, obviously, inevitably, you're not going to have to do as much mobility work because your body is used to being in that's really deep stretch under load. And I think that obviously has helped me so much. Like when I was in my 20s, my joints were trash. And not until my late 20s and now early 30s, does my body feel the best it ever has. Knees, elbows, shoulders, neck, you name it. I don't have any pain anymore, knock on wood. And I don't think that's because I'm getting like a lot more body work or doing more stretching, which I don't do any stretching. Honestly, it's more to do with the training style, I believe. Okay, so what he just explained is they're doing a few sets where they pyramid up in weight. And then at the very end, when they get to like, let's say the set where they only can get 6 to 8 reps, they're going to pyramid back down for 2 sets and go lighter. I think this is an extremely great way to train for hypertrophy. And the reason is because of that fatigue. So you're building fatigue with those heavier sets. And then you've got great blood flow. You've already, created what's called hypoxicity in the tissue. And now you drop the weight and you're enabling yourself to just like get even more at a very, very safe weight. You're probably slowing down the reps more. You're probably focusing more on range of motion than you were maybe on your top sets. So let's see what the form's like here on those lighter weights. Again, same critique, just focusing a little bit too much on that peak contraction. Like when he gets out here is a big squeeze, but then he kind of dumps it in. So I just think that the time under tension is there. I just don't think he's utilizing it in the correct manner as if he was using it more in that stretch position. So doing some partner reps at the end, I don't think this is a bad thing to do at all, especially if you have a training partner you're working out with, to go through some forced reps at the end of your set. Inevitably, it's just pushing past failure points. It's almost like a drop set in the capacity of your reducing the load by having your partner help you. What I would say is, instead of just helping them throughout the course of the rep, when I spot people, especially on a machine press, what I'll do is I'll help them mostly on the concentric, and then I'll let them take that eccentric all the way back, help them on the concentric, let them take the eccentric, because we were actually twice as strong in the eccentric as we had in the concentric. And what I mean by that is, let's say you can bench press 225. If I was going to put 450 on the bar, you could let it down to your chest like at a moderate pace. It probably, there's 0% chance you'd be able to press it off. But what that is telling us is, if you're able to do this and shake it down to your chest, inevitably we're twice as strong in that eccentric portion as we are in the concentric. So you really want to utilize that to your greatest degree. So if you're spotting somebody, do that for them. Help them if it's a dumbbell press underneath the elbow safely. More safely would be on a machine press or cable press or a Smith machine press, just because you have more control over the variables there than, let's say, dumbbells, which can go in all different ways. But if you're spotting somebody on the Smith machine, let them take that eccentric, help them drive out in the concentric, and that's the best way to spot anybody, especially for chest. So 7 months ago, training with one of my favorite bodybuilders, Rafael Brandao. So this guy's probably the most aesthetic open bodybuilder. They're all aesthetic coming out of Brazil. It's just, we just fucking suck as white people, honestly. So, all right, fucking brutal, dude. We're starting off with some drop sets right off the get. So a lot of bodybuilders, you'll notice, and you'll see it more often than not, with a pre-exhausting with extensions, hamstring curls, something of that nature before hitting their compounds. I think it's a really good idea. It's not something I do as often because I really like to warm up on the leg press and open up my hips and glutes and adductors. But like pre-exhausting, I actually did a video, if you guys haven't watched it, where I try Sam Sulek's leg day. And that was one of the biggest things, is the first 3 movement patterns were standing hamstring curl, lying hamstring curl, and then quad extensions. And the reason we do this as bodybuilders specifically is to, like I said earlier, pre-exhaust the muscles before we get into our compounds, get our knees really warmed up, hamstrings really warmed up, because, going into a heavy set of squats right off the bat, body's cold, higher risk of injury, joints aren't going to be as lubricated and warmed up. So I think it's a tremendous idea, and also allows you for way better mind muscle connection, way better pump when you get to the bigger compound movements. So here you can see not a ton of time under tension, but the each subsequent rep, but the total time under tension is going to be tremendous because of the fact that they're doing so many reps. Looks like they're going like 6 to 8 and then dropping the weight, not giving them hardly any rest, just kind of shaking out the quads and then going right back into it. So this is one way you can do quad extensions, not the only way you can do quad extensions. It's not like you have to do a drop set to make your quad extensions effective, but what it can do is it helps you get really, really warmed up, gets you really close to failure right at the beginning of the workout, and then it makes everything after it feel fucking 10 times harder, which is, that sounds counterintuitive, but you really want that, especially when it comes to, like I said, hypertrophy specific training, which obviously Ramon is one of the top bodybuilders in the world. So more drop sets, and very end, some of my least favorite, but also favorite, partial reps at the very end of the set. As we know, partials in that stretch position where you have the knees bent the most are going to really, really get a shit ton of hypertrophy at the very end of the set. Burns like hell. Highly recommend. All right, now we're going some banded hack squats. Okay, so a lot of people use the bands on the hack squat. The reason that I'm like kind of iffy on that is because when you get to the bottom of a hack squat, that's when the tension on the quads is the greatest, the most stimulus to be created on the quads, when the knees are most maximally created, the most flexion in terms of angle. The band is making the exercise easier and easier. So I don't think that it's a terrible thing, but it just makes it kind of easier in the place where you probably have the most hypertrophic capacity. So I would just go lighter and not use a band, but we'll see how it looks. I mean, it does feel great. I'm not going to lie. When you do a banded hack squat and it get down to the bottom, it makes it like 50% of the weight with one of these heavy green bands. But at the end of the day, you don't want to make it feel good. You kind of want to make it feel, or the way it's going to drive the most hypertrophy. So let's see how it looks. Their quads are probably absolutely on fire after all of that quad volume. So while you might say, look, this is one of the top open bodybuilders in the world, looks like he's got like 4 plates and it's band assisted. But what you're not realizing is he's come off of like 3 to 4, maybe 5 drop sets on the quad extension. His quads are absolutely probably screaming right now. So let's check the form specifically. Holding the feet, so I'm assuming they don't slip up. But again, should definitely be eccentrically loading more. Let's get towards his top set, 4 plates. Could definitely be using more range of motion, more eccentric loading, because as I explained, as you increase knee flexion, the more emphasis we're going to get in the quads. So I'd drop this down for him to, let's say, 3 plates, maybe 2 1/4, and go more of a 6-second eccentric. Pause for 1 at the bottom, like ass to grass, ass on your heels almost. And that's what's going to drive the most growth for quads specifically and make it so much easier on your joints. All right. The point I like to always make in most of these videos is dude's training hard. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, if you're staying injury free and you're training pretty close to failure, even if your range of motion isn't optimal, even if you're not doing as much time under tension, like no matter how you skin the cat, if you're getting pretty close to failure at a good rep range, let's say 6 to 15 or 6 to 20, you're probably going to be driving growth. Like I said, injury risk is higher, doing it faster, not as much range of motion, more joint degradation over the years. Maybe that's not going to be instantaneous, but that's what I felt like. Totally fine in my early 20s. By the time I was 25, my joints, elbows, knees were fucking screaming because of the fact that I just kept training and training and training like this. So it might not be an acute injury. It could just be that wear and tear that starts to really make training not so much fun anymore. And I've had so many guys come up to me and tell me like, dude, I just like training's not fun anymore. I was like fucking shoulder pain, elbow pain, I have to work through this, lower back hurts. And dude, I was there. So I know what that feels like, but I think that's the key is like, sure, can you grow? Yes. Is there probably a better way? Absolutely. So the reason is that you can get close to failure in so many different ways. It's progressively overloading weight. It's increasing time under tension, i.e. slowing down your reps. It's maximizing range of motion. So there's so many ways you can progressively overload. It's not just increasing weight. He trains hard. He's consistent. He's on a program. He has good training partners. He obviously looks fucking amazing. Biggest thing, slowing down reps, maximizing range of motion, which is pretty much par for the course with most people that I critique, but can't really, give this guy too much of a hassle considering he looks fucking 10 times as good as me. So Ramon, if you're seeing this, dude, fucking keep grinding, man. I'm a huge fan. And yeah, and if you guys want to see more videos like this, make sure to comment, like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you on the next video.